Hello students, I am attracted to you. First of all, we have Newton's law of universal gravitation. It just states that each and every body attracts each and every other body in the universe with a gravitational force that is directly proportional to the product of the masses, but inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. This means that each and everything that has got mass is able to attract every other thing. So it means it exerts a force of attraction, or it pulls some other object towards it. So hypothetically, me and you are attracted to one another because all of us have got masses, but that gravitational force between them is a negligible force. We don't usually talk about it because it's very small, but we are attracted to one another. So now we are given here, you have got mass 1 and you have got mass 2. You can see that mass 1 is feeling a force of attraction from mass 2, as well as mass 2 is also feeling a force of attraction from mass 1. So they are pulling towards each other. And using the gravitational law of the Newton's universal law of gravitation, we use this equation to say that the force between them is equals to G m1 m2 over r squared. This is the force that each and every object exerts on the other objects according to Newton's third law. So now, what if one body is extremely big and one other is extremely small? So we have got one big object and one very small object. So now, are we going to say that the gravitational force is just going to be due to that big object or what? So basically, let us consider a sphere of uniform mass m1 and a particle of mass m2. This is a sphere, and then we're going to say it has got a mass m1, and then this is a small particle. We're going to say it is a mass m2. So now we can define the distance between the center of the sphere and the particle to be r. So small letter r represents the distance between the small particle and the center of the sphere. We can also define the radius of the sphere to be capital letter R and define the angle here to be theta. So angle theta is basically the angle between R as well as capital letter R. It is just angle theta. So now furthermore, we can talk about the sphere's small portions. So remember that this whole sphere has got a mass. The mass is m1. So now we want to evaluate the gravitational force exerted by this sphere on this small red particle. So basically in physics, whenever you have got something that has got a uniform distribution of mass, you are going to just look at pieces of it. So you will not consider the whole sphere, but you'll only consider small parts of the sphere. So we'll consider this small part here, and I'll call it dm, and I'll also consider another small part here. I'll call it dm. So I'll just say this is dm1 because it is just a very small portion of this sphere of uniform mass. So basically in calculus, whenever we write d before writing something, we say it's a differential mass. So in this case, we are just taking a smaller piece of the sphere's mass. So now we can now evaluate the distance between this smaller piece of mass with this red small particle. And we can also evaluate it using this one at the bottom. So now let us name that distance to be s. So s is the distance between this red particle and the smaller portion of mass that we've chose to cut out from this whole big sphere. So basically we draw a ring. So basically what do? We carve a ring out of the sphere. So this is basically a ring that we have carved out from the sphere. And we're going to say that that ring will have a radius equals to r sine theta. This is due to this trigonometry here. We have got a right angle here. So basically, this is a right angle triangle. If I name this point O, if I name this point P, and if I name this point Q, then you can see that we have got a triangle here. Let's just say this is point Z. We have a triangle OPZ. So there is a triangle there. It's a right angle triangle. And in this sense, you can see that the angle here that we have is 90 degrees. So using trigonometry, using r and theta, we can be able to express the radius of the small ring as r sine theta. So now basically we can also cut a smaller portion of this angle, because you can see here I've cut a smaller portion of the angle. So here basically cutting the smaller portion of the angle here, I will now call this new angle as d theta, because it's just a small portion of this angle. So cutting a small portion of an angle there, I will call it d theta. So d theta is just a small portion. Whenever you see d before writing something, it's just meaning that it's a small portion of something. In that case, it was a small portion of the mass. Now this is a small portion of the angle theta. And then now we can also define another angle here as the angle between r and s, the distance r and s. We're going to define it to be angle phi. So now let us talk about the universal law of gravitation. We say that this smaller particle, which is dm1, this smaller portion of mass exerts a gravitational force on this red particle, because basically that's what Newton's universal law of gravitation states. We also say this other small particle at the bottom here, it also exerts the same force. We have taken out the same portion, so it will exert the same force to mass 2. And then now we can see that these masses, these forces, these gravitational forces are diagonal. So we're gonna call them dFij. So basically when you say dF, we're trying to say these are just smaller forces or smaller portions of forces that are caused by these smaller portions from the sphere, which is dm1. So in that case, you can see that our forces are diagonal, so we can express them using their components. So these are the two components of the first force here. And then we can also express this other one using its components as well, the horizontal and the vertical components. So by analysis, we can see that the vertical and the horizontal component are going in opposite directions, and we assume that they've got the same magnitude since we have used the same smaller portion of masses. So in that case, these y components or these vertical components will cancel out because they are going in the opposite direction. So to compute our equation, remember we say that to find the smaller force that has been caused by these two masses, we're going to do G times M2 times the mass is dm1 over the distance between them is s squared. So we are basically considering one of the forces. But because we have said that the y components cancel out because these y components of the differential forces are going in opposite directions, so they will basically cancel out. So when they cancel out, we are going to remain with this as our force. So our differential force, it is actually the x component. That's why we put cos theta there, is actually the what? The x component. So the gravitational force on the small particle, it is due to the x components because the y components, they have cancelled out. Hence we put cos of this angle to represent the force experienced by this particle. So now, having this equation, we can restructure and find uniform mass distribution. So remember that mass density is constant if we say that the mass is a uniform sphere, because according to the statement, we have said that we've got a sphere of uniform mass. So the mass distribution, it is the same or it is constant. So it means if you pick any piece of differential mass here, from M1, it will have the same mass density as each and every other piece around the sphere. So to calculate mass density, basically you are going to say mass over the area, because density of mass, it is just mass over area. In this case, we are only considering the density of mass, we are only considering the density of M1, which is that just the smaller portion, and then we are going to say over the smaller area of the ring. So now let us look at this mathematics here. So since here we have got d theta and here we have got our sphere, our ring here, we can calculate its area because we know that the radius of the ring is given by r sine theta. So according to our previous diagram, remember we have said that our radius is given by r sine theta. So in a basic sense here, we can say 2 pi r sine theta, because to find the area, basically, you have to multiply the, in this case, you multiply the length, which is equals to the circumference of the ring, and then multiply it by the thickness of the ring given by r d theta. Basically, you can see the mathematics here, that here we have got d theta as this small portion of the angle. We have got d theta as a small portion of the angle. Then we have got r as the radius of the sphere. So both these, they will make the thickness of the ring to be r d theta. I'm not going deep into the mathematics, but basically, this is how we find the area of the smaller ring. So we can express dm1 as this equation just simply by cross multiplying dA times this mass density. So now after that, let us go back to our expression. We've said that dF is equals to Gm2 dm1 over s squared cos phi. This is our expression for the force. So basically we've expressed dm1 in terms of theta, in terms of r, in terms of d theta. So basically we can have a new expression and say that dF here will be equals to Gm2, and dm1 we can replace it with a sigma, and we write 2 pi r sine theta times r d theta, and then this is all over s squared multiplied by cos phi. So this is basically us substituting dm1. So after substituting dm1, we have got our expression for the gravitational force, a smaller gravitational force or a portion of gravitational force experienced by this red particle. So now for us to find the entire gravitational force caused by similar portions all around the sphere, we have to integrate. So basically, to find the force here, we have to find the integral of this expression. So we are going to integrate this expression given by G m2 sigma 2 pi r sine theta, and then we have got a r d theta. So basically you can just write r squared sine theta d theta, and then this is all over s squared, and then we have got cos of phi. So here we have integrated, we are adding up all the smaller differential masses of dm1 that cause a gravitational force on this red particle. So in this sense, what do we do here? We are going to integrate this from where theta is 0 to where theta is pi, or 180 degrees. So now basically here, to find the force here, we can take out the constants. In this case, the constants are all the factors that are not affected by the angle theta, or that are not affected by the change in theta, because here we're integrating in terms of theta. So we are going to look at everything that is not affected by what? By theta, and we take it out as a constant. In this case, G is a constant because G is just a gravitational constant, it's not affected. M2 remains constant as well because the mass of this smaller particle, this red particle, is not at all affected by the what? Is not affected by the change in theta. Sigma, which is the mass density, we have said it remains constant. It is not affected as well. 2 pi is just a number. It's not affected. The radius of the sphere, r squared, is also not affected by the change in theta. But sine theta is affected because there is theta in it. So we are going to integrate this, and then we'll remain with sine theta, and then this will be cos of phi, and then this is over s squared. So now this will be differential theta, and then you are differentiating, you are integrating here from 0 to pi. So basically we have taken out all the constants or all the factors that are not affected by the angle theta. So now to proceed, we want to transform our integral and we want to represent it in form of s. We do not want it to be in form of theta, but we want to represent it in form of s. So we have to find an expression for sine theta, d theta. We have to also find an expression for cos phi. So we have to change this theta, we have to change this phi and express it in terms of s. So now basically we can apply mathematics here and look at certain triangles here. So if you look here, if we say that this is our point P, this is point P, which is the center of the sphere, this is point Q, and then this is point R. We can see that we've got a triangle PQR. So in triangle PQR, you can actually apply the cosine rule to be able to relate S to theta. So now how can we relate S to theta? Basically here, if we apply the cosine rule basically states that you are going to just look at theta as your reference angle. You take the opposite side of theta, you square it. So basically using the cosine rule there, you are going to have something like S squared is equals to, and then now you now square the other sides, which is R and capital letter R. So this will be r squared plus r squared, and then this is minus 2r cos of your reference angle, which is theta. So this is basically you using the what? Using the cosine rule in triangle PRO. So now that you have applied the cosine rule, remember we want to transform our integral to be in form of s, and we know that s does change in theta, so we can actually differentiate s with respect to theta. So we can differentiate s here with respect to theta. So basically we differentiate this with respect to theta, we differentiate s squared with respect to theta. So we are also going to basically differentiate the other side of the equal sign with respect to theta. We are going to differentiate this r squared plus r squared minus 2rr cos theta with respect to theta as well. So basically, we know that s changes with theta. S is actually a function of theta because basically the s here is the distance between the differential mass and the small particle. So we can choose our differential mass to be somewhere here. You will see that we'll have another different value for s. So s changes with respect to theta. So s is a function of theta. Using the chain rule there, we can have the differential to be 2s multiplied by ds d theta. And then this will be equal to, we can see that here, r, which is the distance between the center of the sphere and the particle, does not change with theta. So r, which is the distance between the center of the sphere and the particle, does not change. So its derivative with respect to theta is 0. Even r, which is the radius of the sphere, it does not change with respect to theta. So the derivative is also 0 there. But here we have got negative 2rr cos theta. There is theta in it. So if we differentiate that in terms of theta, we're basically going to get cos, derivative of cos is is negative sign. So negative sign plus this negative here is going to give us positive sine of theta. And then this is multiplied by what? Multiplied by 2r. So basically, remember that our goal here is to express sine theta in terms of s. So we make sine theta the subject of the formula. So basically, we can divide here by 2rr, and the other side also divide by 2rr. So therefore, our sine theta in terms of s will be equals to 2 cancels 2, will remain there with s ds. We have s ds, and then this will be over r. We can just cross multiply the d theta to be this side with sine theta. So now we have an expression for sine theta d theta. We say that it is equals to s ds r. So now we have to also express cos phi in terms of s because we want to transform our integral to be in terms of s. So how do we transform cos phi to be in terms of s? So basically, you can see that cos phi, which is this angle, it is also part of triangle PQR. So we can apply cosine rule again, but now with reference to this angle cos phi. So basically, this angle phi, if we use it as a reference and we apply cosine rule, we'll have r squared, which is the opposite side to phi, because remember that cosine, whenever you're doing cosine, you first start with the side that is opposite to your reference angle. So in this case, your reference angle here, it is phi. So here, you're going to take a look at this side, which is r. And r is opposite to the angle, so it will be r squared is equals to s squared plus r squared. Please revisit cosine rule to make sure that you understand. So this will just give you r squared plus s squared minus 2rs, and then this will be cos phi. So here you have also applied the cosine rule to be able to express cos phi. So in this case, we are sure that r does not change with respect to theta, and phi, basically it doesn't change that much with respect to theta as well, but the s, it is the one that changes the most. So basically, we don't really need to derive anything here, but we need to make cos phi the subject of the formula so that we can be able to transform this integral and write it in terms of s. So basically here, we can just transpose this expression, negative 2r s cos phi, and take it to this side, it will be 2rs cos of phi. This will be equals to r squared plus s squared minus r squared. So now basically here, you can see that here we've got 2rs cos phi is equals to r squared plus s squared minus r squared. To remain with cos phi alone here, we have to divide this by 2 times rs so that these will cancel off. And if we do the same thing on the other side of the equal sign, we remain with cos phi will be equals to r squared plus s squared minus r squared. This is over 2rs. So this is the expression for cos phi. This is the expression for what? For cos phi. So let me just label my equations and say this was equation 1. And I will say that this was equation 2. I will label this to be my equation 3. And I will label this to be my equation 4. So now we have transformed almost each and every part of the integral to be in terms of s. S is already in terms of s. There's no need to do anything about it. But our bounds are still in terms of theta. So how do we change our bounds? We have an expression that relates s to theta. We have an expression, and we can still use the cosine rule to do that as well. So we can use the cosine rule that relates theta and s. It says s squared is equals to r squared plus r squared minus 2rr cos of theta. So now let us change our bounds for the integration. We have a new lower bound. We will find a new lower bound and a new upper bound now in terms of s. So basically, what do we have to do here? We have to see what is the lower bound. The lower bound in this case, it is theta is equals to 0. So here we are going to put 0 where there is theta because we want to transform it. So s squared will be equals to r squared plus r squared minus 2rr cos of 0 degrees or 0 radians in this case. So cos of 0 is just 1. We'll just have our expression as s squared is equals to r squared minus 2rr plus r squared. So I've just changed the arrangement here so that we can be able to see that this is a quadratic form of s squared is equals to. We can see that this is a quadratic form of a difference of, okay, it's not really a difference of 2 squares, but here is just a square in a sense. So we can say this is r and then this is positive r. And then here to find negative 2r in the middle here, what do you basically have to have here? You must have r minus r. And then this is all squared. So s, which is the lower bound there, will be r minus r. So this will be our equation 5 for the lower bound, because we are transforming the entire integral from being in terms of theta to being in terms of s. So we'll also look for an upper bound. So now to look for our upper bound, we can still use the same equation, which is the cosine rule. S squared is equals to r squared plus r squared minus 2rr cos theta. So here we are transforming the bounds here. So our upper bound here in this case, you can see that it is pi, which is 180 degrees. So basically, if you put cos pi here, you have s squared is equals to r squared plus r squared minus 2rr cos of pi radians. So in this case here, s squared will be equals to, if you can see, cos pi is just -1. So this -1 from cos pi alongside with this negative from the expression will give you positive. So this will be r squared positive 2rr, and then this is plus r squared. And then now you can see that this can be actually expressed as the sum of these two. So basically, s squared there will be given by what? S squared will be given by r plus r squared. So here, if we take the square root on both sides, s is actually equals to r plus r. There is no need for the bracket. So this is our new upper bound. This is our equation 6. So now we have transformed the integral. We have transformed the integral from sine theta d theta to cos phi to the bounds. So we have transformed the integral for the force equation. So we'll just rewrite the equation one more time. Remember that our equation was saying that F is equals to G M2, and then here we had 2 pi, then we had r squared, and then this was into the integral of what? Into the integral from 0 to pi of sine theta, and then you had cos phi, and then this is over s squared d theta. So to transform this to be a new integral, we basically have to express it now in terms of s. So we can say that f can be written as, the constants are not affected. This is just gm2, and then this is 2 pi r squared. And then now basically here, we are going to change our bounds. Remember that our new bounds now, s is equals to r minus r is our new lower bound. So we are going to put r minus r. And then we have got our upper bound to be s is equals to r plus r. That will be our new upper bound. We'll have r plus r. And then our sine theta, we've expressed it there, and that was equation 3. Sine theta d theta is equals to s ds over rr. So basically, when you see sine theta and d theta together, you can replace them with s ds over r. And then in this case, you have substituted equation 3 into that new integral. And then our cos phi, because here we have got cos phi that has not been expressed yet. We have expressed cos phi as r squared plus s squared minus r squared over 2rs. So basically, that is going to be our new cos phi, which will be r squared plus r squared. Okay, it's just r squared plus s squared, we're just going to substitute our equation, r squared plus s squared minus capital letter r squared over s squared. And then you can see that here we have got over s squared in our integral. So basically s squared, we didn't change it because it's already in form of s. We don't really have to change it. So this is 1 over s squared. So now we evaluate our integral. This will be given by g m2, and then this is pi r squared into the integral from r minus r to r plus r. So now simplifying this, we can see that you can cancel out some of the things there. Especially here, we can just cancel out s and s here. We'll remain with 1s, or you can just cancel out an s from here. It's just your choice, whatever you do, but you can cancel out one of the s there. So now cancelling out one of the s there, we just have s cancels s there, will remain with only 1s, and then now this will be r squared plus s squared minus r squared all over. We have got s squared here, we have got rr, so this is basically r multiplied by, you have got here, we have got s squared, here we've got s, so that can actually be s cubed if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so yeah, this is how we express. Okay, this is how we express. Okay, okay, cos phi is given by this over 2rs. I'm sorry for that mistake. This is over 2rs. This is over 2rs. So this is over 2rs. So basically here, the s will cancel, then will remain with s squared, and then we'll have r squared as well. So this is r times r will give us r squared, and then this s will cancel one of the s there, then will remain with s squared at the bottom. And then this is our differential ds. So we are going to integrate with respect to ds now. So basically here, we can note down that we have got constants again still in the integral sign, because r, remember we've said that r is basically this radius of the sphere, and it does not change with respect to s in this case. So we can take it out of the integral sign. Even r, which is the distance between the particle, this red particle, and the center of the sphere, it also does not change, considering that we have not moved the sphere at all. So basically, all of these can be taken out as constants. And if we take them out as constants, we will remain with f is equals to g m2 sigma 2 pi r squared over, we take out capital letter R and we take out also r squared. We take out those out of the integral sign. So now this will give us over the integral of r minus r, r plus r. So basically here, in this case, we can just say that we remain with r squared plus s squared minus r squared. Then this is all over s squared. Now this is ds. So these are sharing a common denominator. You can just spread it in. But I want you to notice one thing. Since we have said that the mass distribution here is constant, or the mass density is constant, it just means that if we use any mass on the sphere over its area, we are going to get the same value. So here we can also express sigma as the mass of the entire sphere over the area of the entire sphere. So in this case, the mass of the entire sphere, we'll just consider it to be m1. And then we have said it's m1 from the beginning. That is the mass of the entire sphere. And then this is over the area of a sphere is given by 4 pi times the radius squared. In this case, the radius of the sphere is r squared. So mass 1 can be actually expressed as what? As sigma 4 pi r squared. So this is an expression that you can use to, there's an equation to express mass 1. In this case, we have got something similar. We have got sigma, but we have got 2 pi r squared. So how can we transform 2 pi r squared to become a 4 pi r squared? Because that's the only difference between this equation and this that you have in a circle. So we can multiply by 2 on the numerator and the denominator. That's rationalizing. So if I multiply by 2 on the numerator, I would have g m2 times 4 pi r squared times sigma, and then this is all over 2r squared. So I've multiplied by 2 on the numerator and denominator to keep the fraction constant. This is from basically, we have said that our expression there is actually r minus r. Sorry, this is small letter r minus r, the bound. This is this is r plus r. And then now basically here, you can just spread the sign. You can just spread the sign, the s squared in a sense. So basically you can have something like r squared over s squared, r squared over s squared plus s squared over s squared plus, okay, this is minus r squared over s squared. And then this is all being integrated with respect to s. So now to complete everything, this will be just 1. This will just give you 1. And then this will be r squared over s squared. This will be r squared over s squared. So now to further simplify our thing, we can just look to evaluate this integral separately. Then we'll multiply it with the constants later on because it will be complex. So now let us evaluate this integral. To evaluate this integral, basically here, we are just going to spread the integral sign inside. This will be r minus r, and then r plus r, and then this will be r squared over s squared, r squared over s squared ds. And then we can have the same thing here. This will be plus the integral of, remember here we've said s squared over s squared is just 1. That will be 1 ds from the same bounds r minus r to r plus r. And then the integral also of, this is r squared minus, there's a minus there. So this is minus r squared, the integral of capital letter r squared over s squared ds. So now to evaluate our integral here, we can take r squared as a constant. We can take it out. So this will be r squared into the antiderivative of 1 over s squared will just be negative 1 over s. And then we're integrating it from r minus r to r plus r. To r plus r. And then this is plus. we can take out, okay, here there's no constant. The integral of this will just be s. The integral of 1 ds is just s from r minus r to r plus r. Then plus, we can take out, okay, there's a minus there. I keep forgetting there's a minus. We can take out capital letter r squared. The integral of 1 over s squared will just give you also negative 1 over s from the same bounds, So now you do everything to evaluate your integral, of course. Yeah, if you continue and further evaluate your integral, you should be able to complete the maths here, but the physics part of it is for you to transfer, is for you to determine the force that this small particle experiences from this big sphere of uniform mass. This is basically the major process that has been done or that has been carried out. You can now complete this integral. You will end up finding that the force that is exerted by this sphere will just give you still the same thing as the Newton's law of gravitational force, which will just give you G m1 m2 over r squared. So you further prove that by simplifying all of these integrals and whatnot. But basically, you should be able to find something like this. The force is equals to G m1 m2 over r squared. So what is the physical meaning of this? This basically describes that the gravitational force exerted by a uniform sphere on a smaller particle, it is just the same thing as the gravitational force exerted by a small particle on another particle. Not in a sense that the forces are equal. No, the forces are not equal. If we take a smaller mass and a smaller mass, they exert a lesser gravitational force on each other. But here, in a sense, we can say that the expression that we use to be able to find the gravitational force, even if we've got a very big object and a very small object, we'll use the same expression to find the force because they are still related in the same way. So basically, it still satisfies the Newton's gravitational law that says that force is directly proportional to the product of the masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between their centers. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe. Tell your friends to stay tuned.